It is time now for This Week in the Lakeville Journal. It's a time where we get together with the folks at the Lakeville Journal. We find out what's in the paper. And in the middle studio, we have Cynthia Hoswinder. Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning.
And Ann's here. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Marshall.
Nice to see you there. And we have Janet Manko joining us. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning.
All right, the gang's all here. All right. This has been an amazing month and a half in our region where we have lost
some of the greats.
Some of the greats in our towns. I mean, and when you look at the departments that serve the ambulance squads and the fire departments, I mean, Jack Murtaugh and George Holtz-Gruby and Sharon, and now Bullitt Sherwood last week
in Salisbury.
Salisbury, some true connections to past of these towns.
And what a lot of people that said, so in a sense, this is it's almost a memorial issue for Bullitt because he was so important. He had such an outsized place in the town of Salisbury because of the many, many things that he did for the many different organizations, and also because he was just such a visible person. There was never any question in your mind when Bullitt was around. And a lot of what people said to me as we were talking about it was, we've lost all these greats who really stood up for their towns in a way that new people aren't necessarily doing as much. Like, it was really that old-fashioned New England, like, I'm going to step up and make this all work. And now what you hear a lot is a little bit more of like, I went by the ambulance garage and there was nobody there. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's a volunteer organization and they're only there when there's a call because they have other jobs and they're doing this for free just to pitch in.
The way I judge a person's impact, when I first broke the story about Bullitt's passing, to date, there's been over 10,000 views of that. Yeah. Now, there's only 2,500 people that live in Salisbury. The man had an impact that ranges far beyond just Salisbury.
Everybody knew him, and so the story that I wrote was important to me because everybody, I think, kind of knew who he was and what he looked like, but very people really knew who he was. Like, I wouldn't even. I think I saw Bullitt every day for the last few years since I moved to Lakeville, and I don't think that even I fully got who Bullitt was and what he was about. And there's really no question when you talk to the people that knew him the best that he was just a giant and a great person and, spoke his mind when it was required. And that was part of what made him great, was he had a sense of like, that's not how we do this. And I'm going to tell you how we do things up here in the best possible way.
And in the tradition of people that serve on our fire departments and in our ambulance squads, they become bigger people to more than just people in their towns. Because in general, when you serve on an emergency squad like the fire department or the ambulance squad, you serve the entire northwest corner.
Right. And so for that reason, on Saturday at 11 o'clock in Lakeville at St. Mary Church, when the memorial service for Bullitt is held, first of all, as somebody said from my office, if you want to go, you better get there early. And second of all, it's going to be a big traffic snarl, and Bullitt's not going to be there to unsnarl it for us. So people, do be aware, try to drive not through Lakeville if you can avoid it. I suspect that a lot of the town services over the weekend are going to be not functioning. I mean, of course, they'll be there for our fires and our ambulance calls, but as you said, I think the hose company is not able to do the.
They're not able to do the hamburgers and hot dogs that they've been doing at the big rig event. I put a call out to a couple of different other vendors, but it was just too late in their season of seasons. So I just hope that they found somebody that can help them out. And if somebody out there is listening and they have the ability where they can cook hamburgers and hot dogs,
step
up and contact the Housatonic Child Care Center and see if you can help them out on Sunday.
Right, because that's sort of the theme of the story again, is like we all need to step up. There's a lot of big shoes that have been left empty, and you can't just look to your left and go like, well, why isn't somebody doing X, Y, and Z? Like, where's the traffic person? Well, he's gone, so we have to, help.
And in relation to Bullitt, the Salisbury Sharon transfer station will be closed on Saturday, so everybody can attend the memorial services as well.
Right.
A story of a different type, the blessing of all bikes at All Saints.
This is a really nice annual activity. I think it's like the fourth or fifth year they've done it, and it's Father John Creda at All Saints, which is this beautiful, beautiful little church it's Orthodox and filled with these beautiful tempera icons of the saints. Some of them are newly painted, some of them are collage or decoupage. It's just a beautiful little treasure of a church on the shores of Twin Lakes. And Father John Creda did the blessing of the bikes this year. And it's primarily a motorcycle blessing event, but bicycles are also welcome. And certainly a lot of cyclists go by that very scenic part of Salisbury. But a nice reminder at this time of year, motorcycling is dangerous. We do tend to have 1 or 2 losses every year, so people should wear their helmets and be careful.
All right. Now, an interesting story in the Farm Notebook about farmers looking for creative ways around, not through, mud.
Right. So if you talk to any of the farmers around here, I talked to Charlie Paley a lot. I was over at Freund's, and they're all saying, and, we've had a few dry days, but it's been a very, very wet spring. And for those of us who are not farmers, we think like, wow, that's great. It's going to really help all those plants. Like, certainly I'm always happy when it rains on my garden, but it's been hard for them. They haven't actually been able to get the seed into the ground. When they finally get the corn seed into the ground and are able to, get it planted, then the rain comes and it starts to, create pest situations for them. And I think we all remember about 10 years ago there was that really wet summer and all the tomatoes died from blight. So we're hoping that there's not a summer like that this year. But there is a new report that's out from the Connecticut, like a state environmental group, and reporting to Governor Malloy. And it's a nonpartisan group, but and we'll have an article about this in next week's paper. But that is a palpable impact of climate change. Is much, much more rain, much more heavy when it comes.
All right, different story, and that is farm-raised fish.
There was a film that was screened at the Indian Mountain School, and they invited us to come watch it, called Artificial, and Patrick went. And, of course, Patrick is a big supporter of wild fish. But, I know a lot of people who are saying to me lately, like, oh, I won't eat farm-raised fish, I'll only eat wild-caught fish. So, of course, that's problematic just in the sense that we're overfishing. But on the other hand, when you hear about the conditions in which these farmed fish are being raised, it's not great. But on the other hand, I think we just lost all our sound. Oh, sorry, there we go. On the other hand, a lot of our food is farmed, and so as we all become more aware of where our food is coming from, this article is about the impact that farming has on the wild population, which is that it's weakening it.
All right. As we turn the page and go inside, lots of color here. I want to go to page A3, and you've got a couple of stories about Housatonic. One's about the geography challenge. Thank God it wasn't like the spelling bee, and also the student singers with the Husi concert.
Wait, what happened with the spelling bee?
8 winners because they ran out of words.
Oh, that's too funny.
Can you imagine?
How can you run out of words?
I have no idea. As a person in radio, I don't know.
Right.
You're not allowed to run out of words.
There's a book that's got a whole bunch of them in it. It's called a dictionary. So with the student concert at Housatonic Valley Regional High School, and as a side note, one of the songs that they sang, they did some classic rock songs, and one was the song called "Na Na Hey Hey Kiss." Am I echoing?
You might be a little bit. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So the song is called "Na Na Hey 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 Kiss Him Goodbye," and that was written actually by a guy from Sharon named Paul Lecca, and he was he's the brother of Father John Creda's wife from All Saints, and was a big supporter of that All Saints Orthodox Church. So the student concert, there was a baseball game that went late, and the players came. That's Housatonic is like. You have a lot of kids that are very active in both athletics and in the arts. So kids came late from the baseball game, went straight on stage in their baseball uniforms, and then the very impressive geography challenge winners, and a story from Pete Vermillier.
All right, and. More color on the next page are schools. I like the slow but steady wins the race, and then running and jumping into summer.
So Lance Christensen took the photos. He got there a little bit late, so I actually wrote the article about it. The Electrothon is one of the most fun things to do if you're even remotely interested in cars, which I would have to say that's about my level of interest, is very remote, but I love it. You go and all the kids from these local high schools, actually from all over New England, come, and they race these hand-built cars. And for years, Housatonic didn't compete, and they started about 7 years ago. Mark Burdick is the head of that team, and they built these 2 beautiful little cars, and they've got 3 students who are driving, and it's just for all of us as we start thinking about our own electric car future, a lot of it is about how you husband your battery along and make it last as long as possible.
All right, the Bend was open for access to the Housatonic River in Cornwall.
Right, something that's been going on for years. It was a conversation that grew out of the GE cleanup of the river from the pollution in Pittsfield. And one of the things that the funding went to was the creation of this sort of recreation area and boat launch down in Cornwall near the covered bridge. Finally opened after many years of conversation.
And I'm sorry, I can't help but think about Monty Python celebrating lumberjack skills in a new team sport in Warren.
I am a lumberjack. This is a big deal around here. People love these lumberjack sports. And if you go to the Goshen Fair, you can often see them, doing these competitions about axe throwing. And in this picture, they're doing the Jack and Jill crosscut saw. So Ann Sherwood, who's been very active here supporting the Appalachian Trail, is the coach for the team at Wamogo, and they hosted the Timber Olympics. And she was so excited about it and sent me a write-up and some photos.
All right, on the next page, a strong response to the housing plan in Falls Village, and
is there ever?
Well, I'll note that yesterday morning I wrote, that the Falls Village Housing Trust has withdrawn their application.
So a lot going on there, a lot of complications ensuing with the plan for affordable housing, and we'll see how that comes out. There was a plan to have the continuation of the public hearing later in June. And a lot of people have very strong feelings about this, about the location, but also about the process. And it seems like it would be an excellent thing if maybe there were a revisit of that process.
Well, they just plain withdrew the application. Yep. So and they'll work it out a different way.
Yeah, we'll have more on this in the next issue.
Yeah. A lengthy town meeting on the agenda
yes.
for June 19th.
And right below that, you've actually got the legal notice from the town of Salisbury, so you can see exactly what they're looking into. And it's funny, one of these things that seems so stupid, the town is releasing old and unused easements, but one of the easements, the actual easement that they're releasing, I believe, is the easement that gave them access to the dam in Long Pond, which had been crumbling, and they had to set up easements all around the lake so that they could access it for repairs. I'm not really sure why they're giving the easement away, but I guess we'll find out.
All right. And on the obituary page, John Pulver.
Right, from Pulver's Corner over in the Millerton area. And Dorothy Twing, who was married to Albert Twing, who was a well-known old farmer from Falls Village. An appreciation for Jack Murtaugh. I anticipate that we'll get some appreciations for Bullitt next week, but of course, everybody shows their appreciation for him every day as we remember him.
And speaking about that, on the editorial page, Janet, an extraordinary life, very well lived.
Right, and there we have a picture of Bullitt.
By Ann Day, thank you.
Yes, by Ann Day, and so that's either on Veterans Day or Memorial Day one year, and he could always be found there. And Marshall, I think that one of the reasons so many thousands of people responded online is that his reach went over generations, age groups. People who lived here and grew up as children all remembered him as their mentor or Santa, or helping out on Halloween, helping them cross the street safely when they were in their costumes. So many acts of kindness to so many different people in so many different parts of the community. So, our condolences to his family, and everyone has their own memory. And do read Cynthia's story with all those memories in there from so many different parts of the community.
And I have to say, when I first posted the story, I used one of your pictures where I cropped a picture of Bullitt, and I gave credit to the Journal.
Thank you.
And I had more people say that was the best picture. It was the close-up where he was smiling and looking back.
Aww.
And more people just said that was just like the most outstanding picture. And that's when I went through my archives of what I had from. And that really summed it all up. So we miss him and wish his family well. Lots of letters.
Yes, on all different topics. And, we have Tony Peel on Nader versus Dershowitz. We have Falls Village couple talking about the school merging with another school. We have Michael Motion talking about what the Founding Fathers intended. Indy Osif thanking everyone for Memorial Day help in Kent. Mark Burdick thanking his team of the electric car from HVRHS, and a great story that Cynthia did. Interesting piece from Canaan that says Canaan Cares from the Stop the Asphalt Plant group. And, it's great to see a positive outcome there from their point of view when they're looking to, continue on a positive trend. We'll see. And two letters on the Falls Village affordable housing proposal. So do read both these letters. You'll find out who is on the Falls Village Housing Trust and what they have been working on, and what the neighborhood was thinking about the proposal, and keep up for next week.
All right. And, above that, Andrew Johnson's impeachment killed the idea for a century.
Yes. And, this is what Degalis does for us, is give us a historical perspective, and really does his research and knows it cold. So it's a fascinating look at what impeachment can be or should not be, and it's interesting look back at history. And Matt Gordon talks about draining the swamp. Of course, we have a great Peter Steiner cartoon.
That's right, with destroyers. I like that. With the John S. McCain there. All right. It's interesting as we get to the back section of the page. We actually have a ton of time for Compass, but I have to credit you guys for devoting so much space. It's really tough with obituaries.
Yeah.
How much to do, when to do it, and when to do the extra.
We generally don't do feature stories on, just because we feel that everybody who passes away is really important to the people in their community, whether it's their family or larger. But Bullitt was so exceptionally important, and we felt that not only did people need to understand who he was, but also how much he did, and the need, as you said, for him and for others. And also, a couple people compared him to John Herney, who passed away. A lot of people who really stepped up, and maybe as a community we're not remembering that we need to do that, and we should start remembering.
Well, that's a great comparison, because both men took their talents and their personalities and extended it well beyond their demographics. They crossed all demographics and served all people, and that's a defining moment for a human being.
Right. For a town father.
Yeah.
Right.
And again,
yeah,
you don't they don't just fall off trees.
Right. Make a memorial donation or donate your time.
Yeah. Now we will move on to Compass, and that is just a great picture, and you did it again, of Oscar Espino Ruiz, who we have out the air quite a bit here. The director at Music Mountain.
Yes, they're celebrating the 90th season, and this is Oscar's third season as the artistic and executive director of Music Mountain. They'll have a lot of great concerts this summer. There's going to be, as you know, on Sundays they have the chamber music. What I could say is that you should read the story, because there's so much going on there this summer that I can't even begin to describe everything that's happening. But it's Fred Baumgarten, who's such a good, clear writer, has written a sum up of what's happening this summer. And
coming up this weekend, as a matter of fact, it's their 90th opening concert, and this is at Gordon Hall for the first time. Due to, I guess, some health issues or scheduling issues. Peter Serkin will not be there, but Benjamin Hockman is going to be on piano. And this is a very, very big event for Music Mountain to open up the year with a fundraising event. So
that's right, and he's going to be performing Beethoven, Brahms, Mozart, and Schoenberg. So definitely check that out. I think tickets are still available. We have a review of a play at the Unicorn Theater, which is in Stockbridge, the Berkshire Theater Group production of Edward Albee's The Goat, or Who is Sylvia? C.B. Wismar's written a review. He thinks he said this is going to be a benchmark for the summer theater productions, because it was so powerful and so well done. And its performances are through June 15th, and tickets are available. We have a book review by Sophia Kaufman about this book, Normal People. And I have to say, I've talked to a lot of people in publishing, and this writer, Sally Rooney, seems to be the great hope of literature, because she's really, really a good writer, and she's kind of the best thing that's happened in the past 3 or 4 years. So everybody's talking about her. It's her second novel. This book has been extremely well received, and it's a love story about 2 young people in high school through university, and it follows them through their ups and downs. But it's just so human and so approachable and so beautifully and simply written. So that's there. And then we have a review of a show at the high school in the Two Walls Gallery. The artist Gail Rothschild does this really interesting work. When I walked into the show, I thought that it was ancient fabric on the wall. But in fact, it's kind of trompe-l'oeil. It's Gail paints these pieces of fabric. She makes giant canvases of old fabric that she's seen, and it's quite beautiful. She's inspired by Penelope, who was, waiting for Ulysses to return, was making and remaking her work over and over again, and that's what inspires her. The show is up. I don't know how long it's up, but go
That's
see
for
it.
June 15th.
Sorry?
Through
June
June
15th.
15th. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But go see it if you can. It's at the High School Gallery, Two Walls Gallery.
All right, then you've got, let's go over to the Re-Institute.
Oh, yeah, the Re-Institute, its fabric seems to be big this month. The Re-Institute has a show of 4 different artists. This is one of the best shows they've ever had. I mean, Henry, who organizes these shows at the Re-Institute in Millerton on Boston Corners Road, he has good taste and he knows a lot of artists, but this show is very coherent and cohesive with the theme being fabric. And we have Sazy Carr does these woven pieces that are quite spectacular, and there's a sort of a theme of home that she uses in her art. She uses a lot of mattress ticking. And the piece that I'm kind of intrigued by are these articles of clothing that are made out of sailcloth in superhuman giant size. And that artist is called Kate Hamilton. That show is up through July 13th. And then we also have a review of Rocket Man. And the reviewer, Carl Salader, loved it, as did I. And I think Cynthia loved it, too.
I loved it. I'm going to see it twice.
Everybody I've talked to has loved it. This performer, Taron Egerton, who plays Elton John, is just spectacular. He really embodies the spirit of... He doesn't look that much like him, but as you're watching him, you just think it's Elton because he's managed to channel the spirit of Elton John. And I think Elton loves him, so because Elton was very involved with this movie. But it's a story about all the things that got him to sobriety. So it ends with his sobriety, but he had a wild ride for quite a while.
And he managed to live to this day.
Yeah. And
And
produce
still
a lot.
perform.
Yeah.
And not only live, but really do a lot of good in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's just given so much money to so many causes and has done so much to fight the AIDS epidemic in the world. He's just a really great human being. And I think that all came out of his, he knows about what good fortune he had. He was discovered when he was really, I think he was 23 or 22. So he had a long career before he got sober. And even after getting sober, his music has been amazing. So the movie's great. It's at the movie house. Everyone should go see it. We also have a story about a lecture series in Norfolk called The Ethics of Color. That's going on all summer. The lectures, all the information is in the story, but it's, I'm worried about time.
They
Yeah,
want you to-
we actually managed to fill 6 minutes.
And we could
easily.
do more.
And we have our calendar, which lists all the great art shows that are up. And there's a really good show at Hotchkiss. I'm hoping to write more about it this
Okay.
week.
And now you're out of time.
Okay, bye.
Thanks,
done.
guys.
Yeah, thank you
and
very
Thank you
much.
so much.
See you later. Okay. They'll be with us again next week, this week in the Lakeville Journal, tricordernews.com, and also on Facebook.